This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like, to check you have the tickets in your wallet first before you drive 2 hours to the big game. Seriously, you had one job. Now the closest you'll get to the 50-yard line is parking lot D. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
You know when you reach that age where everyone and their mother won't shut up about their credit scores, yet it seems like no one really understands what's so special about those 3 random numbers? That's because credit scores are meaningless, unless you have Credit Karma to show you how to use them. We use those 3 random numbers, plus your financial profile, to help you find your next opportunity. Like a more rewarding credit card, a game plan that helps you pay down debt faster, or a personal loan to help you save more on interest payments each month. Cha-ching! Download Intuit Credit Karma today to get started.
Whether you're ordering wings for the game, whipping up a 7-layer dip, or ordering pizza, there's something about football that makes you want to eat. And this football season, Uber Eats has the best deals on game day food. No matter what you're craving, from 2-for-1 pizza to buy one, get one wings, Uber Eats will be dropping new deals each week, all season long. Uber Eats, official on-demand delivery partner of the NFL. Order now. Terms and conditions apply. See app for details.
Hello and welcome to 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast and our match report following Forest's win in the supposed East Midlands derby against Leicester City by 3-1. I'm your host, George Edwards, and I'm joined by Tom Newton. Both of us were at the King Power last night and Forest won 3-1. Ryan Yates scored 16 minutes into the first half, but Jamie Vardy equalised a few minutes later. But as we know, 2 Chris Wood's second half goals saw Forest get the victory and move up to 5th in the Premier League. And it's quite amazing to think that it's another away Premier League victory. They didn't really come very easily, but at the minute, Forest are unbeaten away from home. It's the type of game you'd have thought we might struggle with, given the emotional impact of Steve Cooper, given the fact that it's away, our rivals, because I looked at the last time we've beaten Derby or Leicester away, and it's something like 2015. So the fact that Forest have gone away against the odds, and yes, they're expected to win, but they've been fearless, they've been confident in their own skin, and they've thoroughly merited the victory. And I was walking home back to the train and thinking, my friend asked me, what was better, Liverpool or Leicester? And the fact that we've got those 2 memories and jostling between them, it just shows what an amazing start to the season it is, Tom. So have you got a preference, and did you enjoy that last night?
I think they're both equally as good, because it's hard getting points on the road, especially in the Premier League. We're beating Liverpool and beating Leicester. So yeah, they're both equally as good, because if you remember in the first season, we were just getting absolutely spanked every week, wasn't we, away from home? So we've made unbelievable progress, and hopefully over the next few seasons, we're just going to get better and better and build this momentum whilst we're in the Premier League.
And it's the fact that we've actually gone away to these places and merited what we've came away from. Sometimes in the Premier League, you get lucky, and we're 8 games in. Often the table can look a bit fragmented, but I think every single point or 3 points that Forest have got this season, you can say they've thoroughly deserved it. And yes, it looks a bit elevated, that position. But given how we've performed in these games, how we've came away with a lot of credibility, a lot of praise and a lot of confidence, there is something there to make you think that, is there something special happening? Because I was very reluctant to say it, but I said, if we go away to Leicester and win and deserve to win, then maybe something is on the horizon, because it's very unusual, Tom, isn't it? So the fact we've gone away and keep deserving to get what we actually get, it shows that this could be an implemented change rather than just a good spell of form.
Definitely. Another thing is that we could be 7 points better off if we, because the Fulham game was basically a draw, wasn't it? Apart from that penalty, and if we kept on with the the 2 games against Wolves and Bournemouth, and on another day we might have I know that we had 2 sending offs in the game against Brighton and Chelsea, but you never know if we as the game went on and we didn't concede, kind of thing. Stating the obvious, but we could be a lot better off. But no, we're in a very good place at the moment, and if you can't dream as a football fan, what's the point, kind of thing. And you've seen over the years, haven't you? Like Villa were in the Championship a few years ago, and if you just progress and just stay consistent. You never know where it might take you, kind of thing. And we'll talk about it in a bit, but Chris Woods has scored as many goals as Man United's entire team this season, and that just goes to show how good we're playing at the moment. And sometimes you might think we're getting above the station, but like you said, every point, every win we've got this season, it hasn't been lucky. We've actually deserved everything what we've got this season, and hopefully it will continue our next coming months of this season.
Yeah, so we'll get into the match then. We'll discuss the match in detail for the first half, and then second half we'll come away with some talking points, including the obvious talking factor that is Steve Cooper. But in terms of the team news, it was unchanged, unsurprisingly, from the win at Palace, or at home against Palace. So Matt Sells was in goal with a back four of Ola Reina, Murillo, Nikola Milenkovic and Alex Moreno. Dominguez and Yates in midfield with Anderson just ahead of them. Hudson-Odoi, Elanga and Wood. The front three, no Gibbs-White in the matchday squad. And James Ward-Prowse came back onto the bench after his suspension. Not really a surprise in the team news, Tom. I think if Gibbs-White was 100% fit, you might put him in. But given the performance against Palace, given that maybe only Ward-Prowse would be the one to come in for Dominguez, maybe, not a surprise that Forest stuck to this lineup, especially thinking that the team we're playing, Leicester, you'd think they're more of a team to sit back, and we managed to break that down against Palace. So more of the same.
Yeah, no surprise with the team. And to be honest, I wouldn't have brought Ward-Prowse back anyway because he can't play next week. So it's just about keeping that consistency, etc. The back five picks itself. They've been absolutely awesome this season, and you can see it with the goalkeeping situation. Sales didn't have a save to make last night, apart from picking the ball out the back of the net from when Vardy scored. He had a relatively easy night, and the back four or back five, including Sales, they were at ease, weren't they? I wasn't remotely worried at any point of the game that Leicester would score more than they actually did. And then the midfield, Dominguez is, to be honest, he is definitely a central midfielder. He's not a winger. He's been put on the wing to do a job, and he's done a job. But you can see that he's come to his consistency in performance have come to fruition now, and how consistent he's been over the last couple of games, and long may it continue. Yates he's been brilliant this season, hasn't he? He has gone up a notch in my eyes, because I mean, us another podcast, we're thinking, has he got a place in this side and everything? But he's been absolutely brilliant, hasn't he? And it really deserved his goal. And Colin Frey said I know, corrected himself, but the goal what Yates scored, it wasn't a scuff. It was a really, really good finish right in the corner away from Hermansen. And yeah, everybody last night, 10 out of 10 in my eyes. They were brilliant.
And you look at that midfield, we started the season with Danilo, Sangare and Gibbs-White. So given that first 11, we're down to Yates and Dominguez, which were at that time probably fifth and sixth choice. It's incredible the depth that we've got, that those two could have not started the season yet. You would not know that in this game at all, would you?
Yeah, it's a proper Premier League squad now. I mentioned it on the Big Pod a couple of weeks ago, that if you look at the game against Newcastle, our first game back in the Premier League, we had the likes of Hammond on the bench, Cafu on the bench, Lau Taylor, and no disrespect to them, but look where they're applying their trade now. It's a proper Premier League squad now, and in recent seasons with Gibbs-White being out, we probably would have ultimately struggled, but we've got other players stepping up now, and even Nuno saying that the subs are not the subs, they're still. It's not how you start the game, it's how you finish the game. And the subs are really, really impactful now, aren't they? You bring Jota Silva on and Ramon Sousa and Awani, and as soon as Morata come on, that was it. They weren't scoring. And I know it's been hard for him to actually get a start, Morata, since he's come in from Benfica, because obviously Murillo and Milenkovic have been outstanding, but he's another no-nonsense defender, and even that clearance, I mean, it nearly took out the media team to the back of that main stand of theirs. But everybody at the moment absolutely fantastic, and they're just a joy to watch, because like I said earlier, a couple of years ago we was on the going to away games and all of that, and you just feared the worst. You was watching probably the majority of the game with your hands over your eyes kind of thing, but no, they're just a joy, and they're going to compete now, etc. And we've got the hallmarks of a really, really good Premier League, well, not just starting 11 but squad now, and that's massive at this level. So in terms of how the game started, then we had the remembrance tribute for the
Remembrance Sunday that will be next week, which was very touching for Leicester. The away fans took part in the display. So very touching from them. In terms of how Leicester started, I think I was a bit surprised that they had 61% possession in the first half. And I suppose they've got players like Harry Winks, Wilfred Ndidi. They had Ricardo Pereira inverted into midfield, which a Steve Cooper team with an inverted fullback did surprise me. And, it didn't really seem like a Steve Cooper setup, which I suppose is adaptability. And they obviously changed a bit in the second half, which suited us. But in terms of how Leicester started, Tom, did it surprise you? And did you think that it suited Forest? Because that's certainly the team that we like to set up against.
We started pretty well first 20 minutes, but then Leicester, especially in midfield with Winks and Ndidi, started getting into the game and probably overrunning our midfield a bit. And we'll mention it in a bit, but at half-time, Forest actually stopped that. Because they created a box in midfield, and it's like sometimes it was like losing the ball, and there's a big space, and they were exposing the space what we vacated. Alanga and Hudson-Odoi, as soon as they came back in after we lost the ball, we looked a lot more solid and everything. And then obviously when they were like trying to get up the field, we was like, especially Dominguez, he was just like getting the ball and just like giving it to like one of our wingers for the quick overload their midfield, and we was on the attack then. And yeah, as soon as we stopped Winks and Ndidi having a massive influence on the game, we looked a lot better. There was just like that period, wasn't it? I think from like 20 minutes into up until half time. I know they made it 1-1, and I know that we played like on Monday, and I think Leicester had 2 days extra rest. I'm not saying that's a fact, because the players are athletes now, aren't they, and everything. But I just thought that like period, we was like, I wouldn't say holding on, but you can see some of the legs looking a bit weary. And I think we needed half time more than Leicester, kind of thing, and then got it sorted, didn't we? So yeah, that's the only thing what worried me. I thought if we don't sort this out, they might like get a lead in the game and everything, but ultimately that never happened.
Yeah, while you mentioned that sort of box midfield and the negatives, we'll touch on Leicester's goal before we talk about Forest's. It did come from that, didn't it? Because we sort of, Leicester played past our 3 attacking players in Wood, Hudson-Odoi, and Elanga, who were pressing, and then suddenly they've got a box of 4. They've got overloads in both sides, and they very quickly moved in. They out to Winks, to Ndidi, Mavididi, and then Winks in the left. And then, do you think Forest could have done anything to negate that, or was that a setup thing that Nuno rectified at half time?
I think it's a setup thing because of how we was like trying to press them high, because we know like without Fass and is it Akoli, they're not the greatest of like bringing the ball out, aren't they? They looked, if you put them under a bit of pressure, they do crumble, kind of thing. And I think Wood tried to do that, and he ultimately wasn't quick enough, and he just got there a tad too late. Then obviously they exposed the space and everything. But obviously we rectified that in the second half with Nuno's subtle changes, etc. Not so much personnel, but obviously just shutting off that area of exposure, kind of thing. But no, it was. Don't want to go on too much about Leicester, but it was a proper striker's finish, wasn't it, from Vardy? He made a career out of that, just getting a toe end across his marker, kind of thing. It's a good finish, kind of thing. And it was kind of like, I wouldn't say it was inevitable, but as soon as you could see it happening, couldn't you? As soon as they like made up that space and everything, then obviously put the cross in. It was just a sense of inevitability that as soon as that ball come in and Vardy's on the end of it was going to be a goal. But like I says, we got in at half time 1-1, changed it, and what happened.
Yeah, when that ball went in and it's Jamie Vardy in the middle, you just knew, like you would if it was the other way around, and if it was Forest flashing a ball in there, Chris Wood would be there. You just had confidence that Vardy would be there. But 4 minutes before that, Forest did take the lead through Ryan Yates. It was a corner Leicester didn't clear. Anderson has it on the edge of the box. He plays it in. I think it's James Justin with a pretty poor clearance. Comes out to Ryan Yates, edge of the box, first time, and he slams it into the bottom left corner. No hesitation from him. And that, I think, the Palace game especially showed that Forest didn't really have much space in around the edge of the box. And the only time that they did, Chris Wood got it, let it bounce, striked and scored. And that was a very similar sort of pattern to the Leicester game early on, because they weren't giving us space edge of the box. Yates got it, let it go. What a strike for him as well. And not just his goals. This is the type of game he relishes. I mean, he relishes every game. But him and Dominguez as a partnership worked very well. And I mean, obviously we've relied on Chris Wood for goals this season. But the fact that we've got a midfielder in Yates who can be in them positions and score those goals, it's a real positive, Tom. So a good way to open his account for the season.
Yeah, it's a brilliant finish, isn't it? It's obviously just gets that the ball just to go away from Hermansen right in the corner, and yeah, it's like I was quite low down, so until it hit the back of the net, I didn't really see if it took a deflection or anything. But yeah, I've looked back on it on Sky, and it's a really nice finish from Ryan Yates, and like I says earlier, he's been brilliant this season, and he richly deserved that goal. And like I says, it we deserved that. I thought it was getting in some like decent positions. Then just after Hudson-Odoi has that unbelievable shot where Hermansen tips it around for a corner, and yeah, but going back to Ryan Yates, yeah, he deserved that. How he's been this season, he's been brilliant, and it was a really good finish because obviously he just made the ball do enough to put it in the corner away from Hermansen.
And second half, when Forest were kicking towards their fans, anytime Ryan Yates got anywhere near the away fans, he was just turning to us, wasn't he, and geeing us up. And you could tell that if he wasn't on the pitch, he'd be in the crowd, and he was absolutely loving every moment. Yeah,
Yeah, that was brilliant. And like I says, with it, I know he's a bit club captain, but he's really because he's how he's playing, he's getting that respect from the fans now, and it's not just the case. Oh, he's just from the academy, and he's a local lad and everything. I know he's from Lincoln, but he's actually matching his like enthusiasm for the game into his performances now. And to be honest, I think Nuno's absolutely transformed him into this player who's he can grind the gears of like opponents and opposition fans and everything, but he can play as well. And I think with Ryan Yates, if he knows his like limitation, he knows, and we all know he's not the most technically gifted player. But if he just carries on what he does best and don't concentrate on too much he can't do and just concentrate on what he can do, is an absolute real asset to the team. And obviously, he scored against Sheffield United last season. He scored last night against Leicester, and yeah, I think he is like slowly becoming that integral part of the team. He's like, he's probably getting to a level where without Yates, the midfield doesn't work. A bit like Morgan. I know we've coped with Morgan Gibbs-White, but I think he is getting to that point. He's integral, and it's not just a case of an academy player. Let's just stick him in there. He's actually bringing something to the team, and long may it continue.
yeah, 100%. So in terms of how the first half finished, as Tom mentioned, Leicester were getting a bit of joy, but Forest still themselves created chances. We mentioned the Hudson-Odoi chance, which he cuts inside from the right, and it's his side foot, but I don't know how he got so much power behind it. It flashed up towards the top corner, and Hermansen did so well to save that. And then Dominguez has one from about 2 yards out from a corner. Again, I'm not sure how Hermansen saved that. But, I mean, you mentioned, Tom, we weren't the greatest in the first half, but we still could have gone ahead, gone into half-time, 1 or 2 up, couldn't we?
Yeah, it was comfortable. It was like making the odd mistake and probably like not making it tell in the final third kind of thing. That was a bit of a letdown because we was absolutely killing them on the wings. Like James Justin, I don't think he at times he wanted to be out there last night against because Hudson-Odoi and Kalanga sometimes was like switching wings and everything. And I can't remember who played left back for him last night, but yeah,
Justin won it because Pereira on the right, Justin on the left.
Yeah, of course it was. Yeah, and Pereira's played for like Porto in the Champions League and everything. So, but both of them had like really tough nights against Hudson-Odoi and Alanga. Then obviously later on brought Sosa and Jota on. But yeah, it was getting in some really good positions. If we're just like a bit more clinical, because it would have been nice to like I said earlier to get a fourth, a fifth, and a sixth. And like I said, I don't think it would have flattened us really. And yeah, really put the sword to Leicester last night, but it could have been a lot more.
Yeah, it was a game dominated by wide areas, particularly from a Forest point of view. And I keep bringing up that Palace game, but it was almost contrast to that because Elanga and Hudson-Odoi were pretty anonymous in that game, but they come into this one and they're electric. And Hudson-Odoi, for me, especially first half, I know he didn't get a goal or an assist, but I think he had his most influential game yesterday because he not only was having the joy of his fullback, but he was also cutting inside, finding passes as well as shooting. And he obviously hits the post in the second half, has the shot saved. But also, we look at the goal that Chris Wood scores in the second half. That comes from him being quick. I remember for a move we did down the left, and Wood fired it into his feet, but he sticks out a left boot, prods it forward, runs onto it. He had real confidence yesterday, and I think. Do you agree that that was one of his best performances this season? I know he didn't score or assist, but he really shone for me.
Yeah, I know where you're coming from. And another thing is that he did a lot for the team. I mean, when we did lose the ball and Mamadidi was coming down the wing, and Fatawa, I should say, he he was doing his bit defensively as well, like helping Alex Moreno out, because Alex Moreno was on a booking, wasn't he, quite early on. So yeah, he did a lot for the team, and he was very influential. And then we'll probably mention it in a bit, but him, Alanga, and Aina, when they were coming off the pitch last night, they were having an absolute ball, weren't they? So yeah, I know what you're saying about Hudson-Odoi. He did play well last night.
And defending isn't something you associate with him. It does annoy me sometimes when you think he's got so much intent to get forward, but tracking back, he often doesn't have that same drive. But he did show that last night, and Moreno did need help, because I was worried once he got booked. It was just before the end of the first half, wasn't it? And Leicester obviously were a shadow of themselves in the second, but it was a good job. But let's get on to the second half then, and it didn't take long for Forest to get the lead in the second half, 2 or 3 minutes into it, and that really gave them a bit of confidence. But it was a fantastic move from Forest down the left as they won it back. Moreno, lovely back heel out wide. And then he finds Hudson-Odoi, cuts it inside to Anderson. Excellent little dribble from Anderson into the feet of Chris Wood. He turns into the box. And Chris Wood, from that position, if you think about the unconfident Chris Wood that was at the City ground under Steve Cooper, he's probably looking to pass it out wide to Elanga or to get rid of it. But because of the confidence he's got at the minute, he turns, he swivels, bottom corner. That's a finish that many a Premier League striker would be envious of. And Tom, it just shows the vein of form he's in, the confidence he's got in himself. To have him up front is a real asset at the minute for Forest.
Yeah, it's an absolute class finish, wasn't it? It was, I mean, he's still got a lot to do when the ball's brought into him. He's got to turn, and obviously he's got to get it round the defender and past the goalkeeper. And in that bottom corner, it's a top finish from him. And he's been absolutely brilliant, hasn't he? And on another day, he might have given it to Elanga, because Elanga was just off his left shoulder, wasn't he? But no, it's a top finish, that is. And a lot of the people down in the concourse having the last pint kind of thing before they're coming up, and everybody's coming up and saying, "What's happened?" I says, "Wood just scored again," kind of thing. So it was like a top class finish, and like I says, he's been brilliant for us, hasn't he, this season?
I thought you were going to say you were one of them for a second, Tom.
No. So no, I had my few pints before the game kind of thing, and then I was talking to somebody on the terraces kind of thing. Then obviously they came out and all of that, and within 2 minutes we're 2-1 up, and like I says, it was like a full steam ahead for us after that, wasn't it?
Yeah, we mentioned before we started recording, between Woods first and Woods second, we had the brief penalty appeal that Leicester they haven't really complained about, but they appealed at the time. Ball through for Vardy, gets past Milenkovic in the box. Bit of tussling a little bit from Milenkovic. Vardy puts his hand near him as well. And it's one of them that you mentioned that referee didn't give it, so VAR was never really going to overturn it, was it?
Yeah, it's a strange one, wasn't it? It's like you look at it and thinking, no, it's not a penalty, but it's like one of those where VAR didn't get involved. But then if the referee did give it on the pitch, VAR wouldn't have probably said you've made a mistake here. Don't give the penalty. So, but no, I thought, to be honest, Craig Pawson had a decent performance last night. Obviously, we've made no end of podcasts regarding the standard of refereeing, but I thought he was pretty decent last night. When players needed to be booked, they needed to be booked, and that's it really. It was, apart from that penalty appeal, I didn't really recognise him apart from when he was booking players for normal stuff, what you get booked for these days. So, but yeah, no, to me it wasn't a penalty. I mean, I think Milenkovic thought Sales was a bit higher up than he actually was, so he can probably lost a split second of concentration. Vardy's nipped him trying to chase a lost cause, and they've come together. But he was never going to get there, really, was he? Because Sales was picking up the ball as he hit the ground, kind of thing. So, but no, no penalty for me.
And for a supposed derby game, it wasn't very feisty. There wasn't much to control for what you might expect. And if it's Forest derby, it's probably a different kettle of fish. Or you look at the Chelsea game, there certainly wasn't that sort of needle or fight between it. So the referee didn't, like you mentioned, he booked when he needed to. And there was maybe 6 bookings by the end, 5 or 6 bookings, but they weren't unreasonable. It wasn't like he lost it. So we'll give Craig Pawson some credit, seeing as we don't do that very lightly. But I'm not sure if it was from that goal kick or from a goal kick a few minutes later, but Sells got an assist for Chris Woods 60 minutes into the game. It was a long punt from Matt Sells all the way through, and I was right on the edge of the Forest fans behind the goal next to the Leicester fans, and I could see as soon as the ball went up in the air, Chris Wood just knew that somehow that ball was going to drop to him. It's obviously shocking defending from Wout Faes. I mean, I don't know how, to be honest, he's playing Premier League football. The goalkeeper probably should have been at the edge of the box ready to catch it. But as soon as that ball comes over, Chris Wood was just waiting and waiting and waiting for that ball to drop to him. And as soon as he did, he just got it perfectly, that header, didn't he, Tom?
Yeah, when it happened, it's like the ball's in the air and everything, and it's gone over the midfield, and Wout Faes is like, let it bounce, and like that's his first mistake. And I thought, then Chris Wood's got like in front of him kind of thing, and then he does the. I'm laughing at it now, just thinking about it. He heads it up to set him up, and then Hermansen's like glued to his line. He doesn't come out. Then he thought, "Oh, come out!" And he's looped it over him. It's just absolutely a car crash defending, isn't it? It's like the stupid things we used to do in the first season, didn't it? But when it's Wout Faes, and he's like, it's like a Audi version of David Luiz, isn't he? He's crap. And every time every time you watch him, he's just like something happens. Like you mentioned before we started recording, those two goals at
Liverpool.
That's specialist behaviour. That is what he did there. Then he did that yesterday, and yeah, like I bet Chris Wood couldn't believe his luck when the ball was like in the air, and he had to like loop it over Mads Hermansen. But but even with the header, Wood's still got a lot to do because the ball's like obviously above him, and obviously he's headed it, and it's like kind of he could have like put too much on it, and it would have gone on the roof of the net. So technically, it's a brilliant header, and I think it's up there with that header what he scored against Palace last season when he's looped over Dean Henderson. Yeah, technically some of the goals what Chris Wood scored. If it's like because of the Haaland scored in the Champions League in midweek with a flick, didn't he? And you're like thinking, if Haaland was doing what Chris Wood, they'd be like doing like Sky Sport news specials on it, weren't they? And he's just brilliant at the moment, and he deserved his 2 goals last night. And another thing is like Chris Wood's like hold up play was absolutely brilliant last night. He's like Sells was like sometimes going long, and he's just like chested it down, and no one's near him. And he did a lot last night for the team. Chris Wood did, and he deserved his Man of the Match award.
And you mentioned his finishing. If you think about certain strikers in the Premier League, like you look at Watkins, it's sort of right channel across goal, bottom corner. You can't really pinpoint what a Chris Wood goal is because he can score so many. He can score headers. He can nip between defenders like he did at Chelsea and have a one-touch finish. He can score a one-on-one. He can turn into Messi like he did against Newcastle. It's just, incredible that we've got this guy up front who can do whatever we really require. And unless he's not going to dribble 50 yards and do a step over and stick it in the top corner. He's not got the pace for that. But really, what can he not do at the minute?
Yeah, he's brilliant, isn't he? And I put this stat out the other day. Since the Premier League started in 1992, I don't know what it is now, but at the time when I put the tweet out, only 61 players in Premier League history scored more goals than Chris Wood. And he scored more goals than Eric Cantona, Zola, Pires, Suarez, Aubameyang. It's an unbelievable record. And I think he's on 76 Premier League goals. So obviously he needs another 24 to get to join the 100 club.
Yeah.
And they need to get this contract sorted out because I bet there's like teams out there thinking, oh, we could have a punt on Chris Wood. So ultimately, hopefully, gets this contract sorted because he seems so easy playing at Forest. He's the most humble player I've come across. It's like he's not flash or anything like that, and he's really appreciative of his teammates. Because if he's saying without his teammates and the service he's been given, I'm nothing. And he's like really down to earth, and he's not all about me kind of thing. He's just doing his bit for the team, and he's doing it absolutely brilliantly. So, and I said this a few years ago that when we signed Simon Cox, I was always adamant that we signed the wrong player from West Brom. It should have been Chris Wood, because every time Chris Wood played against us, he used to always score against us. He scored for Bristol, Birmingham. I think he scored. I'm sure he scored against us for somebody else, and he's just brilliant at the Championship level. And I thought, he might be good in the Championship, not good in the Premier League, but to score 76 goals in the Premier League, that is some going. That is. Yeah,
and he's done it at different clubs. He's Burnley's all-time top Premier League goal scorer. He's got 7 goals, only behind Haaland currently as we speak in the Premier League. And he's 2 goals behind Brian Roy now to become our all-time Premier League top scorer. It's just incredible,
Yeah.
isn't it?
And I think he's got to be in the conversation of one of our best ever strikers. I honestly say, I know people, I know you're younger than me, but you probably didn't see Stan Collymore in the flesh, but Stan Collymore had everything. He had power, pace, everything. But if you look at stats alone, Stan Collymore was obviously a striker, Chris Wood's obviously a striker, and he's scored all these goals at Premier League level. Like you say, he is a special player. And I think he's definitely got to be in the conversation of our greatest ever strikers up there. Because I can't remember who the other striker was when they picked the all-time 11. I know Colin Moore was in it, but I don't. It might have been like Trevor Francis or Nigel Clough or something like that. But yeah,
I think Grabban was in there, wasn't he? But Chris Wood certainly has
no,
to be in that conversation.
I think this was 8. I think this was a good 10, 15 years ago when they did this team. I think it was like a lot of the players were like from the 70s. Might sprinkle in the 80s players like Roy Keane was picked in the midfield with John McGovern. But yeah, Stan Collymore was definitely striking. I can't remember. It might have been Francis because he scored the goal in the European Cup final. But and I'm not saying Chris Wood's as good as like Trevor Francis, because obviously Trevor Francis was in the European Cup, but he's got to be in the conversation of one of our greatest ever strikers. And we've had some decent strikers over the years, but if you remember, like Grabban and Earnshaw did it in the Championship. Chris Wood's doing it in the Premier League, and it's, as we all know, it's the hardest league in the world. So fair play.
And the fact we've got Taiwo, who for so long when he's been fit before looked like the guy that was going to be our number 9 for the next 3 or 4 years, and we might struggle to keep hold of. Yes, he's had his fitness issues, but he's been pretty much available all season. But he's not had a sniff of it. He's not even really made many substitute appearances, because there is no doubt at the minute that Forest number 9 is Chris Wood. And like you mentioned, Forest have got to sort this contract situation out, because if we are in danger of losing Chris Wood on a free, or if a team signs him in January for next season, that's going to really, really mess with us. Obviously, his age is a factor, but even if we look to bring in someone next season to maybe take over from the year after, to learn from somebody like Chris Wood, who's got the streetwiseness of the Premier League, who knows it inside out, how to score goals in this Nuno side as well, it'll just work so well, won't it?
Definitely. And I don't know how much he's on. Say, I know people were saying he was on big wages when we signed him from Newcastle, but I think he deserves that. Like, the most expensive player on the pitch are strikers, and Chris Wood is doing what he's paid for. If he is on 100 grand a week, give him 100 grand a week for the next 2 years, kind of thing. Make sure he's ours, because it's so hard getting a striker in. I mean, we tried all summer, didn't we, to get another striker in? Santiago Jimenez, Eddie Nketiah, Omar Mamouche from, is it Frankfurt? We ultimately didn't get them in, and we was going to pay big money for it. Yeah, so it was like taking it would have paid meaning we have to part with like big money to get them in, but Chris Wood's obviously doing the job for us. So, and I think he richly deserves his like additional couple of years to his current contract.
Yeah, okay, we'll have a break. It was 3-1 at the King Power at full time. Ryan Yates had a chance late on that he missed somehow from about 2 yards out, and like Tom mentioned, it could have been a lot more, but it wasn't. We'll be back after the break to talk about the game management, the subs, and the little factor of Steve Cooper.
The 1865 Match Report.
With Uber Reserve, good things come to those who plan ahead. Family vacay? Reserve your ride as soon as you book your flights. To all the planners, now you can reserve your Uber ride up to 90 days in advance. See Uber app for details.
You're listening to 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast.
Hello and welcome back to 1865, the Nottingham Forest match report following our 3-1 win away at Leicester City. Now let's talk about them full-time scenes then, Tom, because it was another jubilant party atmosphere in the corner of an away end that we've got used to really this season. Elanga Hudson-Odoi dancing and absolutely loving it. Moreno with the fist bumps that Steve Cooper came so renowned for. It was just the perfect way to start a weekend, wasn't it?
Yeah, and absolutely S-Housery, as people are calling it at the moment. Yeah, and as we all know, that the derby in this area is Forest and Derby, and Leicester don't like us. We don't really care about them, but to actually bury them in their own backyard, singing about our former manager, why he's on the touchline as their current manager, it was win-win. It was brilliant, and I think we deserve it, because obviously the last couple of years following Forest on the road like me and you and others do, it's not been a pleasant experience, has it?
No.
So yeah, it's great. And I did see on Twitter or X last night that it was the biggest burial in Leicester since Richard III. And that made me chuckle. But yeah, as we mentioned earlier in the pod, if we would have scored 4, 5, or 6, it wouldn't have flattened us, and I think that would have put the nail in the coffin. And we were all really appreciative of. If it wasn't for Steve Cooper, we probably wouldn't be in this position, because obviously he was the man who got us into the Premier League. But I bet it was uneasy for him listening, hearing the Forest fans who used to worship him when he was on Trent's side, and I bet he just wanted the ground just to swallow him up and take him there and then kind of thing. It wasn't a pleasant experience, and obviously, he hasn't got that rapport yet with the Leicester fans. It might never ever come, but losing against for them your local rivals 3-1 and everything, it was a bit of a humbling experience for him, wasn't it?
Yeah, and you look at his full-time antics, Cooper, and we know, obviously, from him being with us, he likes to go around the whole stadium and applaud, but he very coyly just did half of the stadium and didn't even consider walking over to us. And when we were doing the building up for the suspense that he used to do, and a little bit maybe just thinks, I wonder if he just wants to come around and do a little fist bump. But obviously, he wouldn't have done that. I wonder whether if they'd have beat us, he'd have came and give us a little wave. But I think he knows that'd have been a PR disaster if he even acknowledged us throughout that game.
Yeah, he didn't even acknowledge us in the pre-match press conference. Did he? He never gave us anything, and whereas Nuno did, and it just goes to show how they're perceived at the moment, because Cooper's gone in there. Probably the majority of the Leicester fans didn't want him in the first place because obviously he's ex-Forest and all of that. And yeah, he didn't really give us the time of day, did he, the other day when he was doing his pre-match press conferences, whereas Nuno praised him and all of that. But it goes to show you who's doing well and who isn't at the moment.
Yeah. And you saw the Steve Cooper chants, but we sung the Steve Cooper chant, and then almost straight away afterwards, it was the Nuno chant. And it was almost a signifiance of, thank you, Steve, for where we've got. We've got a defensive platform that he was. And, Leicester probably need a manager like Cooper to keep them up and to establish them. But then we've moved on from that. We're on to Nuno now. We're all invested and bought into it. And he's really brought the best out of this squad. So it was a real lovely moment. And I looked at some stats and away in the Premier League. So Steve Cooper managed 28 games in the Premier League and we won 2 of them. Whereas Nuno's managed 15 and we've won 6. So that's triple the amount of wins in basically half the time. Points per game, we've got 0.46 under Cooper. It's 1.4 under Nuno. So it was just a real stark reminder that thank you, Steve, for that. But we are a lot better off now with Nuno.
Yeah, and I know it's obviously circumstances come into it and all of that. But you look at Nuno and he did a very, very good job at Wolves. And I know he went to Spurs, and when you're like a 5th choice manager, you're on a hard into nothing, can't you? And it was only a matter of time before he ultimately lost his job. But if you remember, didn't he win 5 in 5? Then obviously they just dropped off the face
manager
of
the
a cliff.
Didn't he?
Yeah, then dropped off the face of a cliff. So, but yeah, Nuno's a very, very capable manager. And with Steve Cooper, it's like you look at him, and I don't want to give the guy a disservice because obviously of what he's done and everything, but you just look at. I don't think he's in that echelon as elite Premier League manager or a good Premier League manager. And if you look at Leicester last night, how they played some decent stuff, but
no end product was that.
Getting it, yeah, and I think that's the hallmarks of what we were like, and especially the first season where we was making stupid mistakes and probably didn't make the right decision with the ball and everything. But yeah, Steve Cooper's history now, and like you said, it's Nuno, and we just want to have that gradual progression and see where it takes us.
And you think back to that 4-0 game in the first season under Cooper, where we looked completely out of our depth and Leicester looked like the competent Premier League side. It's amazing how in 2 years that almost looks flipped, and Leicester are the side that are trying to get a foothold in games and can struggle at 20-minute displays but cannot make it last around 90 minutes, whereas Forest are the ones now imposing and taking down the opposition. It's amazing how in 2 years how much can change. Let's look at the game management. Then we mentioned Morato and Williams coming on, and not much really is made of that, because Forest away from home, it's like a standard now, and to see out results, we just go from a back four to a back five seamlessly. You don't notice a difference, but there's no change in sort of our style. We still actually manage to get forward. Nico, particularly down that left side, gets forward so well. But defensively, it's just so rigid. And I don't know if they do much work into it or if it's just sort of a natural thing. But that from 5-4 in an instant is amazing to see, isn't it?
Yeah. And Milenkovic and Murillo have been brilliant. Obviously, the fullbacks have been brilliant. The goalkeeper's been brilliant. Then got players who just know the job. And it all goes with consistency, doesn't it? And obviously they've worked on it. There's no denying that. But everybody knows what the job is now, and consistency is a massive factor. If you look at how Man United, and they keep like changing their centre halves every quarter of a game or whatever, but we've having that consistency. Milenkovic and Murillo, apart from the first game of the season, I think they've played every single minute next to each other, and that just goes to show where we are in the league and everything, and how we're playing. And yeah, consistency is like a massive factor in this league.
And we've done all this, we've got 6 points in the space of 5 days, 4 goals scored, 1 goal conceded, move up to 5th in the Premier League, all without Morgan Gibbs-White. And I think it's the only time since we've been back in the Premier League that you think we're even possible of getting a point without him. And let's talk about Elliot Anderson, who's filled the gap. He's obviously quite a different player to Morgan. And, he's more of a dribbler, more of a conservative sort of attacking midfielder. He's played that role very well. There's a lot of talk about if Morgan was fit, fans would still stick with Anderson. I'm firmly in the camp of if Morgan's fit and firing, he's got to start. And I think if possible, the final aim is to get Anderson as an 8, Gibbs-White as a 10, and maybe Sangare or Yates sitting as a sort of 6, which I don't know how balanced that would look, but that is my final aim. But would Anderson be somebody you'd be looking to be a number 10 for seasons going forward, or do you think Gibbs-White is that player and Anderson's just a very good backup?
Gibbs-White's, you build the team around Gibbs-White. He's that important to us, kind of thing. But it just goes to show that we're not solely reliant on Gibbs-White, because obviously we've got other players who can like do a job and everything. But I think with Anderson, I think he could be an 8, because obviously he's got that build. He's strong and everything, and very good with the ball at his feet. So, yeah, at this moment in time, Gibbs-White is the main man. But in recent years, we've probably been a bit guilty of trying to rush him back because there's nobody else. Whereas we can actually give him that bit of time to like fully recover. I think it was when it was our first round about the first Christmas of being back in the Premier League. I think we tried to rush him back, and it was a shadow of him as a player we know, kind of thing. So it's nice to have that like strength in depth now, where you can say to Morgan, yeah, you've had an injury, you probably could play, but let's get you 100% right rather than like 80% right, and then obviously you can have a relapse, kind of thing. So yeah, Anderson is more than capable of playing that number 10, but the number 1 is Gibbs-White, but Anderson could play in that number 8 role once he got some like Premier League games under his belt and that experience.
And I'm not sure if you heard the chants at the end that we win away, the Forest, the new winning away chants. Our next 3 away games, I believe, are now Arsenal, Man City and Manchester United. That's quite daunting, Tom. How many points are we going to get out of that? And do you think we'll be unbeaten away at the end of that run?
I don't want to get above my station and say we'll stay unbeaten. But like I says, I don't fear the games. I think we're capable of like giving them a game, kind of thing. And we all know what the juggernaut of Manchester City is these days, but you never know. Arsenal haven't been brilliant, have they? There's always something been happening there in their games, whether it's a sending off or whatever. So, and we competed pretty well with them last season, especially at the Emirates on the opening game of the season. I mean, they panicked, didn't they? Once we got it to 2-1, they were like bringing Thomas Partey on and a few others and Kiwi just to like show us up and all of that. So yeah, that's our next away game. But I think these, first and foremost, we need to concentrate on these next 2 home games against West Ham and Newcastle, and now we've got that monkey off our back with the game against Palace where we've got the 3 points. Yeah, I'm looking forward to these next batch of games, kind of thing, and just like keep going. I'm not going to ever say at this moment of the season we're going to get into Europe next season, but it's nice that I'm not fearing games. Like the last 2 years, it's like, oh God, we've got them again. I fear that player, that player, and that player. But we've got the hallmarks of really, really capable Premier League squad with the strength and depth. And I've seen other fans who are watching the game last night from a neutral perspective, is that Forest do look an established Premier League team these days. And that just goes to show the progression we've made, because if you compare that to last couple of seasons where you've got a decent starting 11, but there's nothing beyond that. Now this season you've got like the likes of Sousa, Jota, Williams coming off the bench, Awani coming off the bench, Morato. Yeah, we're going in the right direction, and that all goes behind the scenes with like Marinakis and the recruitment staff and all of that. So we're in a very, very good place at the moment.
Yeah, I think that word fear is one that has evaporated really. Like I mentioned, those first 2 years, there was a bit of relishment and excitement that we had the buzz to go to these places, but there was a fear and acceptance that we're probably never going to compete. Whereas now we've got we can beat anyone, can't we?
Yeah, it's a bit like a day out, wasn't it? You go into these like cracking new, like especially going to Spurs' new ground, and that experience and going to Anfield. But the football was pretty tragic, really, wasn't it? It was like as soon as we left an NG postcode, that was it. It was kind of, let's put the red carpet out, and we used to like roll over and get our bellies tickled. But now we're made of sterner stuff these days, and that all goes down with the club. The good thing about the club, like other clubs, of like, let's just bag the Premier League money and it will set us up for the next 10 years, so to speak. But no, Forest have actually spent money. We've been criticised along the way. We've made mistakes. We know we've made mistakes of how many players because not every player is going to come off. But no, everything's settling down nicely, and even the media are seeing that now, aren't they? They think, oh yeah, they've spent all that money, but everything's settling down now, and that progression, that status in the Premier League, and where we are, we're doing very, very well at the moment, and it will continue because Marinakis doesn't settle for mediocrity, does he? He wants more and more and more, and you can't blame him.
And you look at Saturday, 3:00 today, we're in a position where we're even looking at teams in the bottom half of the table to want him to get results. And we've never been in that position really since we've got promoted. We've got 16 points now, which I think that's half of what we got last season already, only 8 games in. It's real progression, Tom. So even in the promotion season, we were worried about relegation, thinking about relegation. I can't remember the last time that wasn't in a factor. So are you confident that this season we're not even going to have to worry about relegation, or do you see a rough patch ahead maybe?
It's not even come into my mindset. When you look at the likes of Southampton, Southampton are awful. They try and play this like nice, expansive way of playing, but they're just getting like caught out in most games. I mean, they were 2-0 up last week, weren't they? And get a man sent off, and they absolutely crumble. Ipswich were having a go, but I don't think they will have enough. And Leicester, I mean, those last 2 games before last night against Bournemouth and Southampton, where they've got 6 points, it's given them a boost, but it's kind of like, you just don't know if they like slip into like no wins in like the next 6 games or something, they're going to be back down there, kind of thing. And I think Wolves are like, they're playing all right, but they're just not getting the results. And when it's like that way, you're playing well and you're still not getting anything, it is a worry for them. And obviously Palace with their problems, I just think with them, they've got Eze and not a lot else. And with Matetu banging goals in for fun last season, wasn't it? Playing them, and if you look at Eddie Nketiah, he's like, you've got like when he was at Arsenal, like Ødegaard and Saka and Martinelli providing him. He hasn't got that quality at Palace, so I think they're going to have a bit of a struggle this season. But yeah, going back to us, I've not even thought about us being in a relegation battle, because I don't see any danger of us being down there now with the quality we've got.
Unless they manage to give us any points deductions for Marinakis' conduct or something, let's hope we'll be fine. But yes, it was a magical away game, another fantastic memory made at the Leicester City Stadium. We'll leave it there. Thank you for listening, and thanks, Tom, for joining me. Make sure you subscribe to 1865 on YouTube. Make sure you listen on Spotify. You can find all the links to our social media and where you can listen to the pod on the words 1865.football. We'll be back with the women's show and the Friday 5 next week, so stay tuned for that, plus the West Ham report next weekend. But have a great week, and I'm sure you'll be spurred on by that. Come on, you Reds.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
If you're a facilities manager at a warehouse and your HVAC system goes down, it can turn up the heat, literally. But don't sweat it, Grainger has you covered. Grainger offers over 1 million industrial-grade products for all your operations, including warehouse HVAC maintenance. And even better, they offer access to experts and fast delivery, so you and your warehouse can both keep your cool. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.